Today, I'm going to show you why sometimes you really have to read the article. Now, what you're seeing here is what GameSpot put up on Twitter. This looks like it's definitive. Oh, Game Pass bad. But that's not what was said. Dev who launched game into Game Pass warns against launching games into Game Pass. What people are going to see with this is Game Pass bad, developer who put their game into Game Pass says it's bad. And they're going to move on. And some people will repost this article. They'll, especially the ponies, they'll like, I'll see Game Pass suck, guys. Game Pass is bad, guys. Yet, if you look at the article, that's not at all what is said. So we hop over here to the article, and even in the subtitle, it's completely different. Revenge of the Savage Planet's Alex Hutchinson warns against how subscription services can devalue content. See, this is representative of what's actually in the article. This is an outright lie. Speaking to Gamer Social Club, Hutchinson said most of the traffic so far for Revenge of the Savage Planet has been from Game Pass. While full game sales have been good, the game is also available on PlayStation 5 and PS4. As for bringing a game to Game Pass at launch, Hutchinson said working with Microsoft and presumably taking payment from the company was part of Raccoon Logic's balancing effort of trying to reach as many people as possible and making money. The financial terms of Game Pass deals are not made public, but it's understood that Microsoft pays developers to bring their games to Game Pass at launch as part of Xbox company's ambition to scale the service and attract new users. Hutchinson said the whole industry should agree to only allow games on the subscription service a year after release. He said that the video game industry should embrace the traditional movie model where a film debuts in theaters exclusively and then comes to DVD, TV, or a streaming service. The current structure will prove very damaging to anyone who is not owned by a publisher soon if it continues, Hutchinson said. Posting on social media, Hutchinson said Nintendo stands alone with respect to retaining the value of games. Everyone except Nintendo is also in a race to value content at zero, which ends in tears. He said the studio's hope with making a deal with Microsoft was to help Revenge of the Savage Planet get exposure that would in turn encourage people to buy the DLC pack or encourage a friend to buy the game. That's not what's happened, though. We haven't seen that, or at least not yet. Now, I streamed the game. I got the deluxe edition. And let me say, like, I enjoyed the content of the DLC pack, but I can see why people would not get it because it gives you like a nice quest, which gets you some suits, and you also get a suit by default unlocking it. It's pretty nice content, but like, if you're just playing on Game Pass, you don't really need to play it. Now, if they release some story DLC, that's going to be a completely different story. I think a lot of people will hop on the story DLC that like the game. What we've seen is that content has been devalued and that people are less willing to pay for things, which in the long run will likely mean less games being made and a lot more studios going under. Now, see, I'm going to disagree with him here. Claire Obscure launched on Game Pass. They sold 3 million copies. It's a small studio because they don't have a ton of bloat. The game is massively profitable. And I imagine his studio is very similar. I haven't looked into them. So they probably don't have a massive amount of bloat, so their game is probably profitable. You can put a game on Game Pass and still have it sell. But people who play the game on Game Pass might not be willing to buy DLC because they don't see a value in it. Because the DLC only adds a new suit and some quests that give you unlockables. And really, that's not necessarily for the core gameplay. A story DLC, by comparison, would be more topical, more enjoyable, more relevant to anyone playing the game on Game Pass. So, while he does have a point that people buying on a subscription service might be less inclined to pay for DLC, I disagree with him that it's teaching people to value content less. What you're having is a demographic who are going to buy Game Pass because they don't have a ton of money. And I'm not calling Game Pass users cheap, but people who don't have a lot of money or live in a fixed income, like myself, like Game Pass because it gives you access to a ton of games at a set price. A lot of those people are going to then turn and look at a $10 DLC and be like, well, I don't really need this for the game. Or they might not even know the DLC's available. He does have a point, though, that subscription services can hurt industries. For example, in the movie industry, they got rid of their secondary markets and went immediately, everything went to streaming. So they don't have DVD sales, they don't really have rentals anymore because everyone just wants to watch on streaming. So it does damage distribution, but in the gaming market and in the sense he's referring to, I believe he's a bit off. As for the Game Pass payments, Microsoft Hutchinson said it was true that the checks were big enough to make a difference, but that was years ago. These days, unless your game is tiny or you're a rare, enormous brand, it isn't much. But Microsoft have been amazing partners, and we're so glad to be working with them. So basically, when the servers got started, Microsoft was more willing to shove out a lot of money, probably way more than it was worth them to pay for these games. Similar to what Epic Games does with their exclusivity, which they've had to pay out every single sales guarantee contract on. What Hutchinson is not saying don't put your game on Game Pass. He's just saying like, hey, here's my opinion on subscription services, and Game Pass just happens to be one of them. And in other industries, he has an extremely valid point. I just think he needs to look at the more broader picture when it comes to Game Pass, its demographics, and whether or not the DLC he had was worthwhile. Because let's be honest, he said he would hope that other people would buy a copy of the game. Well, why would I tell my friend to buy a copy of the game when I could tell him, hey, we can play together, just go buy a month of Game Pass? Now, if I remember correctly, they do get paid per play. So the more people are playing, the more money developers get. They get paid if you play more games. So by having your friend come in and play the game, they will get more money. We just don't know the terms of that part of the contract. Now, there are other people who are going to have friends that like to own games, and they say, like, hey, I play this game on Game Pass. It's really good. And their friends can be like, okay, because they don't really do the Game Pass stuff. They just buy their games because they have a ton of money. So they'll go out, they'll buy the game. So he probably has seen players who bought the game because their friend was playing on Game Pass and they wanted to play with them. And they just prefer to own their games. So once their friend confirmed it was a game, they bought the game. And even though the game was coming on Game Pass, I bought the game and I streamed it. So I am living proof that just because Game Pass exists and your game is on Game Pass, people will still buy your game. But as you can see, what he's talking about is more his concerns over the subscription model damaging the gaming industry, very similar to what it has done to the TV and movie industries. Not Game Pass bad, but hey, this might become a serious problem for the industry because publishers can withstand the impact. Actually, I'm going to disagree with him there too because publishers are pure bloat. Now, let's say I set up a publisher, right? There would be me, my marketing boys, who I'm probably going to outsource, and the accounting, which I'm probably going to outsource. So we're probably going to be like a really small operation, just have people that make sure progress is being made, milestones are being met, and then people to do the pitches and recruiting and evaluation of the project. So a very small, compact organization. No bloat. But a lot of these major publishers have a ton of bloat, which is why the smaller publishers are rising up to replace them. Clearly, this is not Game Pass bad, and GameStop attempted to make it look like Game Pass bad. And that's all there's to say on this. Hit the like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.